Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you may be. This is Fireside Chat number 19, and we have with us our special guest, Blaire White. Hello, Blair. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us today. And also with me, I have Karen. And
Hello, I'm here. I was invited here multiple times, well in advance, and I just showed up just now because I'd completely forgotten. But I'm really happy that I'm here
yes,
because yeah, no, it's nice that we get to talk to Blair, and eh, I mean it's okay hanging out with Brian every once in a while. So
yeah, it's whatever. I mean, just deal with it. um, Blair, thanks for coming. Okay, so let's get to know you a little bit. I know people in the chat are like, "Who's Blaire White?" So let's find out. Blair, tell us a little bit about, let's see, what you do, and in terms of the YouTubes and stuff.
Okay, so in terms of why I'm here would be
Yeah.
my YouTube channel. So my first video I posted was on this concept of female privilege, and I spoke about it from my perspective, which is I am a transgender woman, and I kind of just went over how the total shift in the way people treated me when I started transitioning and I started interacting with the world as a female and being perceived as a female. And since then, I've done other videos, mostly pertaining to men's issues. And a couple of times I've talked about trans stuff, but mostly men's issues because I find them one and the same. So yeah, YouTube videos.
Okay. So whenever we bring somebody on that likes to talk about like men's issues or anti-feminism or things like that, I like to ask them about what their red pill moment is. And I saw one of your videos was called "Female Privilege," and you talked a bit about your different experiences before and after your transition. So I guess
Yeah.
my next question is kind of multifaceted. The first thing I guess I wanted to know is, can you tell me a bit about your transition, like where you are now, what your intentions are, and secondly, what your red pill moment was. Well, first we'll
Okay.
start with those. So
Okay. Well, growing up as a trans kid, I was always, I think, hyper aware of gender politics. So it's always kind of been on my radar, just analyzing how the world treats men as opposed to women. And I've never identified as a feminist, but I don't think you have to really identify as a feminist to kind of hold the cultural view that women are disadvantaged. That's kind of just a widespread belief. As
yeah,
far as my
I was just going to say that a lot of times when people say, well, I don't consider myself a feminist, I think that there still is, for most people, a belief that women are hard done by, that women are
Yeah,
disadvantaged, and they need to be protected. And that just kind of
yeah,
that's sort of like the default.
yeah. And then as far as my transition, a lot of times when people talk about transitions, people who aren't trans have this idea that it's kind of like an overnight thing, like, oh, I woke up one day in 2009 and decided, oh, this will be a laugh, let me transition.
Yeah.
But it's more of it was spread over the course of a large amount of time. In my teenage years, I kind of slowly shifted towards um, a more female appearance, and then in the last year, I've kind of experienced 100% of the time, at least I think, going into public spaces and being identified completely as a woman. So my life greatly changed by that. So as far as a red pill moment, I would say it's kind of an accumulation of, there was a time where in my life about a year and a half ago to 2 years ago where I would pass some days, not pass other days. And so it was very much black and white to me, just the way the world would interact with me. So there wasn't really a moment, but it was just kind of over time I kind of learned, hey, the world is actually opening up to me in a lot of positive ways when it perceives me as a woman.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta tell you before we move on, you fooled me. You passed really well. and you know, Karen's boyfriend.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, my boyfriend was like, oh my God, look at this hot chick who's like talking about men's issues. Holy shit, do you know this girl? She's like so. He's like, she's abs, and I was like, oh yeah, I know her. She's a trans woman, and he was like, what? For a second, he was like, how is this possible? And then he was like, well, she's still really hot. Oh my God, blah 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 blah, right? But he was just like, it just threw him for a loop because you do pass really, really well. You don't have any of the sort of the little signals that make people kind of furrow their brows. Your voice is, you know, quite. It's you just don't have any of those little markers that would make people wonder, and so yeah, you fool a lot of people. Not saying that that's necessarily like some kind of superhuman superhero thing,
Yeah.
to be able to pass to that level, but yeah, you do absolutely, and it's so I think in light of the fact that you pass so well, it's actually really cool that you're so open about being a trans woman, because you wouldn't necessarily have to be, at least in the sense of, you know, your interactions with the public through YouTube and all of those other things. So.
Yeah, there was a time when I was thinking of doing my first video, and I was like, you know, I could talk about the fact that I'm trans, or I could not, but I think it would separate me from kind of the other anti-feminist girls who post videos. I'm not saying their videos aren't great, but I just thought I should include it, you know?
Yeah.
Well, it does give you a unique perspective, having sort of lived both sides of the fence, right? And
Yeah.
I think that that's one of the things, and I've said this before a lot of times, that trans people have a lot, whether they're, you know, trans women or trans men, they have a lot to offer in terms of just having lived both experiences, and being able to actually say that, and I can't imagine that you would say everything's better living as a
No.
woman. But there are a lot of things that are better living as a woman, and you know, there are maybe some things that are better living as a man or as a boy, but there are a lot of things that aren't so great about that. And
Yeah.
I think that offers a unique path to being able to understand exactly how gender dynamics work, and sort of the
Yeah.
balancing of gender roles and all of that. So yeah.
Yeah, I've just an example since you mentioned it. I remember when I first legally changed my gender, and I kind of was walking out of the car, and I had my court order that said this person's now female, and I remember thinking like, oh wow, I can't be drafted now, and I was like, that's kind of amazing. And then
Yeah.
there are of course just the everyday interactions you have with people, which a lot of people have kind of, not a lot, but some people on my videos have commented, well, those are trivial and they don't matter. And it's like, you know, they are trivial, I guess, but in terms of a person's overall quality of life, I think it actually is, there is a lot to say for, you know, going out into the world and people just being a lot nicer to you.
Well, I find it interesting that they would say those are trivial and they don't matter, when these exact same people would be saying things like, the statement, the best candidate should get the job is a racist microaggression or something like that, right? Um,
Right?
you know, like, how is that not trivial, and why is this now something that everybody has to think about, including, you know, university professors and faculty and administration and staff, right? They have to now
Right.
watch every single thing that they say to ensure that they do not microaggress against somebody, and yet you're saying, well, there are these actual major, noticeable black and white marked differences in how I'm treated, whether I'm presenting myself to the world as a male or a female, and they're saying, oh, well, but that's trivial, right? You know, like actually being treated politely and courteously that's just a trivial thing, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I
And you think of the word microaggression, micro, small, that's literally trivial, and they make it to be the biggest thing. So,
Yeah.
but it's a cumulative effect. It's
And
like
yeah,
it's
it's
the
systemic.
death of a thousand cuts, right? So,
Yeah.
right.
So let's talk about your like your red pill moment. Did you have a red pill moment? Like I saw in your chat with Theron, you were talking about how earlier on, or Theron admitted to this too, and I think this is again pretty par for the course. There, you may have had, or she, I hope I'm remembering this right. You may have been you might have been considered a social justice warrior at one time.
I was never one of those people who was out going on about systematic this and oppress this. It was never that, but I was definitely more so in the camp of the people who hold that cultural view of, LGBT people are, have it just the hardest in life and this, that. And, there's some truth to that. If I was sitting here as a trans woman who didn't pass and who had a beard and this, extremely deep voice, like it'd be a very different conversation. I probably wouldn't be sitting here saying, the things that I'm saying. So there is some truth to that, but I was never a social justice warrior to that extent, no.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, what was your red pill moment? Like, when did you decide that like that something is wrong here, and I need anyone to talk about this?
Well, there was a moment that I did a video on. It's the one that Karen commented on, where I was sitting in a psychology class, and the professor was a feminist, and there was a lot of feminist discussion that went on throughout the course of the semester, and there was a public presentation done by one of the students on domestic violence, and everyone started sharing their stories, and everyone was crying. It was kind of a joke, a bunch of adults in a room crying. And all the women were sharing their stories about whether they had been abused or their mother or someone they know. And then at the end, there was one male student who decided that he wanted to share. And the moment he started detailing the abuse he suffered from his girlfriend, people in the class were laughing at him. And it was kind of like they thought that he was telling it to be funny, because that's kind of how we see male victims of domestic violence. So that was a moment where I was like, wow, this can't be, I think this is like a microcosm of the wider culture, that we just don't take domestic violence seriously when it's in the context of a male victim. So that was one of the moments where I kind of thought, maybe this feminist thing isn't all it's cracked up to be.
That's really funny, because my experience for me was almost identical. It was in college. It was in the classroom. I was in an ethics class, and something similar happened. We were talking about, I think it was, we were talking about circumcision. Well, we weren't originally talking about circumcision, but it turned to circumcision when a guy brought it up, and even the professor was dismissive and said, "Oh, that's not an issue. These women's issues over here. It was about the female genital mutilation that goes on, in like Africa and Islamic countries, Saudi Arabia and stuff." And he was saying, "Well, that's basically the same as circumcision, right?" And they'd like, "No." And I was like, "Well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Things are pretty similar. We got to talk about this." So yeah.
Circumcision is the one that's just like, you bring that up and your scene is just insane. And I don't really get it. I think it's just because, in my experience, I've had this discussion with people, and a couple of mothers actually, and I think they get so defensive over it because they themselves made the decision to circumcise their baby boys, so they can't really rationalize how it may be something that it was a wrong decision. So they go against it as hard as they can.
Yeah, which is really fucked up, because because I've seen that too, where mothers who have decided to get their children circumcised will try everything in their power to rationalize that decision, but the only reason why they're doing it is because they want to protect themselves from the guilt
Yeah,
of
it's
having
always,
made
oh,
that.
they're happy, they're healthy, they're fine. It's like, okay, but you mutilated his dick. So,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I look at it like because doing what I do, and my mother-in-law, she made that decision for her son, for my boyfriend, and she was really defensive talking about it initially, right? With me. Just because she was very interested in hearing like, okay, so what kind of things do you talk about, right? And so I'm telling her, and then I brought that up, and she's like, oh my god, I'm being accused of like doing this horrible thing to
yeah.
and she sort of took this defensive tactic of, okay, so I was just like, I was young and I was stupid, and I didn't know any better, and the doctor just said it was the right thing to do, and I just so like I guess I'm a horrible mother for listening to the doc. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Nobody here is, essentially blaming you for not being informed, for trusting your doctor, for trusting the medical establishment, for trusting the customs of the country. The very common when my boyfriend was born in 1983, right? There's still about half of boys in Canada were being circumcised, right? So, and it was still covered by the universal healthcare system in most of the provinces, right? So you didn't have to pay nothing. And so essentially you had doctors promoting it, right? Like they were promoting it, and you have people who don't. I mean, like, this is 1983, right? You can do the research online now. You can sit in your living room and you can type in circumcision benefits, circumcision harms, and you can do a Google search and you can make a decision, right? But in 1983, all most people really had access to was their doctor's opinion,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And it was so common, right? I mean, his mother would have grown up among an age cohort of people where 60 or 65 or 70% of the boys her age had been circumcised. So it's normal to her. It's normal within the culture. And here's her doctor saying, "Oh, it'll avoid problems. And if it's just a little, he'll sleep right through it. Doesn't cause any lasting harms. Blah 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 blah." And she's just like, "Okay, why not?" Right? And so, like, presenting it to her in that way, that like it's really not. I mean, I would never have done it, just because I would have been like, how can cutting something off your kid not hurt, right? And I couldn't imagine putting any of my kids through anything like that. I once poked my daughter with a diaper pin, and I was still intermittently crying about it 12 hours later. I felt so bad, right? I couldn't imagine cutting a piece off, like, thinking but you look at the context of the culture at the time and the fact that it's your doctor suggesting it, and he's kind of pushing you, he's like kind of talking you into it, and you've just had a baby, right? And you're in that state of exhaustion, and like all your endorphins are like making you stoned, and like, so it's not. But I do think that a lot of people who have made that decision for their children do feel attacked. And I think
Yeah.
part of that is that there is this sort of extremely loaded language around it, and there is this sort of tendency to, toward this "how could you" attitude. Well,
Yeah.
no parent wants to ask, "How could I have done this?" Um, and not come up with any answer, right? And if they can answer that question with, "The doctor talked me into it, and I was just some young person who had no access to anything other than my doctor's opinion," right? Then that gives them a way of saying, "Okay, yeah, no, that was my son was harmed, but I can accept that my son was harmed and not take on that entire weight of guilt. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
sorry, I rambled a lot, didn't I? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
a bit. That's okay. Okay, Blair. So obviously, being a trans person allowed you to experience life as both a male and a female, and you did a video about it called "The Female Privilege." What did you like? Just sort of to summarize. I mean, I already put links to your YouTube so the people who are watching the show can just go to your channel and watch your videos, which you guys should totally do. But after this stream is over.
Yeah, keep watching.
But tell us just like the sort of the short version of what you've seen. What is female privilege?
Okay, so female privilege, if you want to start with the quote-unquote trivial things, then it's just, I think of going to the mall and I think of just getting 10 times the amount of random smiles from strangers. I think of doors being held open for me. I think of there was one time I was getting sorry, I have a cold. I was getting lunch at Subway and there was just a random man who decided to buy my food. There was going to bars and getting there is going to bars and having drinks bought for you. And then, obviously if you don't want to harp on those small things, there's also, the fact that I don't have to be drafted now just because of a simple gender, legal change.
Yeah.
And then there's obviously men getting way longer prison sentences for the same crimes, and there's being taken seriously when you are a victim of domestic violence, like we talked about. There's just so many things that don't get to be talked about, and that's why I wanted to do my channel, to just sort of, talk about them. And I think, unfortunately, people like me and women will get a lot more people willing to listen than men themselves, and I think that sucks. But
well, in a way, actually, Honey Badger Radio itself is a bit of a testament to that, because it is mostly women. Like when people reference Honey Badger Radio and the Honey Badgers, they're referencing the fact that it's women, most of the time. Even though there are guys on Honey Badger Radio, guys like me and Mike, but yeah, I think there's something about when a woman speaks out either against feminism or in favor of the issues facing men and boys that makes people pay attention. And Allison herself has said, it's going to take women talking to get people to pay attention. But
there are also what they call the TERFs, or trans exclusionary radical feminists, who will dismiss me as just a man who's still benefiting from my male privilege. So there's that. And then there's also, online I've gotten a lot of positive reaction, but in real life, with the feminists and the LGBT community in my area, honey, it's been a different story.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, it's been a lot of bullshit.
In real life, you've gotten this?
Which is surprising, because people seem to think that this is just some huge online discussion and that it doesn't really translate into real life, but it definitely does. There was a girl in one of my classes over the winter semester I took recently, and she had seen my videos, and she was actually friends with someone who I used to be friends with, who is a pretty radical feminist, and who sent me some angry texts after he watched one of my videos. But she came up to me after class and was like, hey, I wanted to talk to you. And I was like, okay. And she began talking about, what she disagrees with in my videos, and I was fine with that, because I actually rarely get to have these conversations in real life, because a lot of people just don't like to have them. So I was talking with her, and just the language she used a lot of the times, one of the things that she said that really stands out is that being trans, she literally said, being trans, I'm a part of the feminist movement whether I like it or not.
I was just going to say that.
Talking butthole. She can lick my butthole.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. Like, okay, so we've started to see in the last couple years, but I'm sure it goes back further. Let me make a correction. I've started to see, because it's probably, you guys probably have seen this much further back than that, where we have this sort of like fourth wave intersectional feminist movement that's been growing louder and louder on YouTube, as well as in universities and in politics, and in the media even. And it basically deals with taking essentially trying to put every possible movement that deals with human rights under a single umbrella of feminism. And as a result of that,
Intersectionality.
Yeah, intersectionality, right. Fourth wave intersectional feminism fighting against the kyriarchy. And that's no. It's exactly
the kyriarchy is just patriarchy with some like craisins and chopped chicken and mandarin orange slices thrown in. All of a sudden, it's not salad anymore.
Yeah.
We don't know what it is, but whatever it is, it's not salad.
It's the progressive stack. It's like stuff that goes back to at least Occupy Wall Street, you know. But as a result of that, you're sort of like the, you know, your being trans has become a political football, essentially. Yeah, and so basically it's being politicized by these people, and I wanted to know what you feel about that.
Are you saying in the game of feminism, trans people aren't the opposing team? They're the ball?
Yeah, exactly. Like blacks.
We are the ball.
Yes, like blacks and gays and people who don't conform to the gender binary, and minorities and the and Muslims, and I don't know, whatever else you want to throw in there. Yeah.
Yeah, the trans identity has been so politicized. I mean, there was a day when transsexual meant a man who became a woman who became a man, and that's obviously a very simplified way of looking at it. But now you have just this huge spectrum of, you know, trans identities that, in my opinion, people take on these labels and these identities as a political tactic. They don't take it on because that's genuinely how they feel. And this is my problem with, you know, people who say that they're non-binary and that they're agender and that they're gender fluid. It's like, you know, you're free to have a self-concept with as much nuance as your imagination can hold. But, you know, the people, I've been around these people, and these people definitely use it as a way to, you know, continue their agenda, and also to silence others, because the second you call yourself a minority, the second you call yourself, you know, a quote-unquote disadvantaged group, then suddenly anyone opposing you becomes you know, a transphobe or a homophobe or whatever, and then they have the upper hand in the conversation, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was on a stream. I can't remember who was running it, but it was I was on there with Harmful Opinions, who you may or may not have heard of. He's very hilarious. It's like a burning brain, and it was basically a card game where you had to they had 300 genders that were all found on Tumblr. Someone had made like a complete list. It was over 300 genders, and they had to turn the card over, and based on the name of the gender, you had to try to define what it meant. And it went on for hours and hours. It was a drinking game too, so if you failed, you had to take a shot. So I was pretty wasted by the time it was over. But
it's different to the Bernie Sanders drinking game, where anytime he mentions some free government program for disadvantaged people, you take a swig of someone else's beer, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit different, because you have to, you know, my fear shears. But yeah, so this politicization of your trans identity is pretty disgusting, and I'm sure that it can be really frustrating, like to have someone just tell you that you are a feminist just because you are trans.
Yeah, it's the identity politics thing, just so blatantly, like literally telling me I have to be a feminist because I am trans, and I think that's so. You know, the thing about trans people, there's a misconception that it's sort of an invention of feminism and of progressivism, and it's totally not. You know, trans people have been around for a very, very long time, and the face of a trans person in 2016 is very different than, you know, 50, 100 years ago, but we've been around. And oftentimes we're actually isolated from each other. We don't get the chance to sort of be in a community because there's not a lot of us, first of all. And second of all, we're spread out, we're isolated, so we don't have any uniform belief. And I think a lot of people seem to think, and rightfully so, a lot of people seem to think that trans is synonymous with feminism and, hardcore liberalism. But hopefully that's starting to change, and people like myself and Theron are willing to come out and add some difference to the conversation.
Well, one of the things that I don't want people to get the impression of is that nobody's saying that trans people don't have issues within the political sphere that need to be addressed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Within the realm of domestic policy and health policy and and all of these other things, right? I don't think anybody's arguing that there aren't actual political issues that trans people have to contend with. But it's sort of this, well, you're our lapdog now, right?
Absolutely.
Of feminists that, and therefore now we can say that your issues are our issues so that we now have a bigger political bludgeon and a more effective, because trans people are actually one of the groups right now who arguably have a serious case as far as being marginalized, being disadvantaged, being victimized, way above and beyond what other groups tend to suffer, right? That the feminist co-opting of that is essentially just a way of feminism trying to maintain its relevancy as representing truly marginalized groups, right? Women are no longer marginalized. Women-born women are not marginalized anymore. They arguably have a bigger voice in the mainstream than men-born men. So, you look at that and then you think, like, how callous is it and how cynical is it for them to, like, order you to line up behind them and provide them with political balance, right?
Yeah, and I agree that my life has been pretty easy, and I'm not afraid to admit that that's directly related to the fact that I'm able to pass in public. Like I said, if I was sitting here looking another way, I'd be singing a different tune. But in my opinion, trans issues and men's issues are one and the same, because if I am treated badly based on the fact that I'm trans, it's not because it's, trans misogyny. It's actually, in my opinion, misandry. Because the problem with calling something, misogynistic is that when you label an action misogynistic, you're attempting to get into the head of the perpetrator, right? So in their mind, if someone is accosting a trans woman or discriminating against a trans woman, they're not seeing them as, oh, this disgusting transgender woman. They're saying, oh, look at this fucked up man.
Yeah.
Look at this dude. That's what they're thinking.
Failed man, fucked up man, not really a man, trying to pass himself off as something other than a man. He's a sissy, he's a pussy, he's he's still a he in the minds of those people, and that's really, I think, the crux of it is that in the minds of the people who would assault a trans woman, on a first sexual encounter, when they, when I guess the quintessential, crying game moment, arises, and then he's not assaulting that woman because she's a woman. He's assaulting
a dude who looks like a woman.
Yeah, in his mind. Yeah, that's his motivation, right? So the whole trans misogyny thing really, particularly since when trans men are assaulted, they're generally assaulted by, when women transition, when trans when a trans man transitions and starts presenting as male, their risk of being assaulted, being violently assaulted, goes up. But it actually increases because they are now perceived as men, right?
Yeah.
They are at higher risk now of stranger assaults and muggings and robberies and, dust-ups at the bar and, and all of these things that men are find themselves more prone to being victims of, right?
Yeah.
There's much less of the sort of the clothes come off and all of a sudden now I'm going to beat the ever-loving snot out of you because you tricked me, right, into thinking you were actually a man. There's less of that going on than there is with trans women.
Yeah,
and
trans
so,
women experience the brunt of, they have the majority of violence committed against them in the entire LGBT, umbrella. So that's all gay people, all lesbians, all trans people, all bisexual people. So there's
right.
something to that. When the world sees a trans woman as a broken man, in other words, this fucked up dude, this man who has nothing to offer, society, can't support a woman, can't, just of no service to anyone else other than quote unquote himself, that person's going to have some struggles out in the world.
I just had a thought. So I know that trans people make up a pretty small percentage of the population currently. Yeah, very small. But one of the things that we were talking about is what feminists call trans misogyny, and that is essentially it's another example of the ways in which feminists are always people on that side politically. I mean, feminists are definitely among them. They try to redefine words. They try to control language. They try to add words. Like I don't know if you know, but like the Oxford Dictionary added mansplain. They added they added mansplain to the dictionary.
Did they add manspread yet? Manspreading? Did they add manspreading yet?
I don't know. I have to look. Or manslamming or whatever. Man-interrupting. Yeah, I'm sure that's coming. But mansplaining for sure, as well as the other sort of genders like gender fluid, agender, and I don't know, it was one of the other genders, like a couple of those terms, and a lot of those gendered terms are in there too. Cisgender is in there as well. I don't think it was in there before recently. So, but what I was thinking about was if we call a man that's transitioning into a woman that is assaulted trans misogyny, then do we call a woman? Would they call a woman that's transitioning to a man that gets assaulted transmisandry?
No.
Or would they still try to find a way to make that women?
No, they would call it straight up misogyny.
Yeah, they would just call it misogyny. Yeah.
Yeah, everything. They can't. It doesn't fit into the worldview that a man could be a victim of any sort, and if they are, then it's a byproduct of misogyny.
Yes, all roads lead to misogyny, and I, like when I get called, when I get called a butch, right? I was called a bull dyke by somebody who it was on a Thunderfoot, one of Thunderfoot's recent videos, and somebody came on and called me a bull dyke and a lesbian and blah blah blah, ugly and fat and the whole bit, right? And arguing against, claiming not to be a feminist, but arguing against the MRA position and all of that. He thinks we're both equally retarded. But when he does that, that's misogyny because he's policing my gender. But when he calls MRAs pussies and faggots and all of that, he's also being misogynist because he's comparing them to women.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, whatever it takes to make sure that women are victims. It's essentially you have a situation and there may be some logical holes in it, and the point is to fill those logical holes with your ideology.
Misogyny. Misogyny. Whatever. Like misogyny is the go-to. It's like pepperoni on a pizza. It always works out.
How does this situation oppress me?
And I think trans people truly are like the whole in a lot of feminist logic, which is why they work so hard to make sure that we're on their side, I guess you could say,
Oh,
because
yeah.
we are the whole.
That brings about another really interesting topic. The topic of, and this was your newest video, which we've seen trans people like you and Theron. I think Theron may have brought this up too. But I've seen other people make this argument, which I think is a really interesting one. Is, well, feminists say that gender is a social construct and that you are socialized to be the gender that you are, and it's not assigned to you at birth.
What a joke.
Yeah, what a joke, right? But that doesn't work logically with the concept of trans people, which are people who, don't feel that their brains match their body, and they want to make that change, right? So, again, just the short version. What would you say to the people who would say that, hey, gender is a social construct and it exists on a spectrum, and you're only a boy because you were wrapped up in blue, and they bought you Legos that were primary colors instead of pastels when you were growing up?
Yeah, I mean, then my question to them would be, then why don't I live my life as a man? Because I was socialized completely to be a boy, to be a man. I think there's a misconception that trans people have these ultra hippie parents who either force them to be trans or, don't teach them how to be a boy or whatever. But my parents, even my mother was a tomboy. My dad was a football referee. I had all uncles. All my cousins were boys. I was socialized completely to be a boy, and I ended up the complete opposite. So gender, this idea that we are who we're taught to be is very flawed, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to agree with that, and I think that it does a disservice to gays and lesbians and trans people and anyone who doesn't actually sort of fit in with sort of the binary of straight men and straight women and all of that, and the gender roles, the very, very stereotypical gender roles, is that when you actually can convince people, and a lot of parents of queer children end up having sort of a road to Damascus moment when their own kids come out, because they're like, I did everything to raise my boy as a regular boy, right? Like, and he turned out to be a gay, right? Like, what the fuck, right? And they're like, but I love my child. A lot of these parents, they're like, but I love my child, and now I'm going to rethink this whole thing. I was conservative. I was homophobic. I thought that the gays were a threat to society. Now my son has come out to me as gay, and I'm having a hard time seeing him as a threat, right? But when you actually can convince people that there is, and not that it's genetic, right? Just that it's not a choice, right? That it's not something that's readily influenced by how you raise somebody, but it's a combination of genetics and the in utero environment, and the hormonal factors and the epigenetics, and then maybe some of it is early environment, but maybe not all of it. And even if some of it is early environment, some of it may not be anything that anybody can control. So you remove all of the elements of choice and all of the elements of, okay, what can we do differently next time, right? Then people start to realize that, okay, it's nobody's fault, right? And so what are we going to do other than accept these people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's nobody's fault and there's no way to change it, and it's just the deck of cards different people were handed, then and we can't put them through 3 years of like rehabilitation to pray away the gay, right? If that's not going to work because it's really not a choice, right? Then what other choice do we have other than to just accept them and So people are more tolerant of this stuff if they think there is no element of choice in there, right? So the moment that feminists come in and say, it's all just a social construct and everybody's born asexual, and then they learn these gender, like, okay, well, if you can program a gender into a child, right, just that easily, just by handing them dolls instead of cars, right, then why can't you pray the gay away?
Mm-hmm.
And what parent wouldn't want to have their child pray the gay away? Because being gay or being trans or being lesbian or whatever, right, is just more difficult. It's even just in a logistical sense, even getting beyond the ideas of prejudice and judgments and all of that, right? Just being able to find a partner, right? When your pool of partners is reduced, right, drastically. Who wouldn't want their kid to be straight if they could just like pray and send them to some re-education camp?
Yeah.
Right? So
Well,
I
I
mean,
imagine there are probably some couples in San Francisco that would, but
Probably. And I will say this, I don't want anyone to get the impression that I think that gender is just, 100% biological. There are certain, obviously, expectations of gender which are socially constructed and upheld. I think of, the way that I've kind of, what's the word, like, gradually gone into my personal style. I have long hair, I wear makeup, I wear a certain style of fashion that are considered feminine. Those are obviously arbitrary, and they shift over time. There was a time when powerful men used to wear powdered wigs and makeup, and now we call them drag queens. So that changes over time. But as far as, everything else beyond just the superficial, saying that you can program a gender into a child and then it's all a social construct, it's a mess.
yeah.
anyone who believes that needs to read up on David Reimer.
Oh yeah, that's the John Money.
John Money, Dr. John Money, and his experiment on actual children that resulted in 2 suicides that he conducted in order to prove that gender was just socially constructed, and that you could actually take a boy and just any boy and raise them as a girl, and they would become a girl and then a woman.
Yeah.
Absolutely tragic, horrible story. All the way from right how it started, which was with a boy having his genitals burnt off during a circumcision. So.
Yeah, a botched circumcision that ended up leading to the boy's suicide. So yes, that's the David Reimer story. If you guys, hopefully you're familiar. If not, definitely check it out on YouTube. But after the show, and after you've gone to Blaire White's channel. Okay, Blair.
By the way, there's someone who's been asking a question in the chat kind of relentlessly, so I just want to answer it because it's
okay.
I keep seeing it.
What's the question?
Is this ad? Is it ad?
No. There's a person who keeps asking. They have no idea how to act around a trans woman, and they want sort of me to talk about, the proper way to act, I guess. I would say that you just treat someone like a normal person. I think, there's been a lot of times where people, they act a certain way around me, and they treat me differently because I'm trans, like trying to overcompensate, like, oh, I don't want you to think that I'm, transphobic or something. And that to me is more annoying than someone who would just straight up not like me for being trans.
Yeah.
So.
But then, like putting people in that position where they're walking on eggshells around a trans person that
I don't like that.
Want to be treated differently is something that the people that we're talking about, they create that fucking environment. They make it that way, and they
create it. And I'll say, sorry.
No, go ahead, Blair.
Okay, I'll say that the feminists create that dynamic, but I'll say that even people, in the anti-feminist community, they still behave like walking on eggshells sometimes. You can look at my comment sections. There will be people who are saying, you're really pretty, and I hope it doesn't offend you. I hope you don't think, blah, blah, blah. is it okay if I say this? You know, people definitely, there's that aspect of walking on eggshells that really annoys me.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think that the people who are generally like, even people who are anti-feminist or people who are critical of feminism or people who see themselves as more egalitarian or they're sort of like making their way, they still see they look at these issues. I think hierarchical. Like, so they say, oh, I don't have a problem criticizing women. Because, or for bad behavior and treating them as equals. But if I come across a gay person, or if I come across a black person, or if I come across a trans person, I'm still going to be cautious because maybe I haven't like gotten past the point of just treating everyone as individuals. And that I think that's sort of like it's a constant work in progress for a lot of people.
I also think that the whole point of transitioning and living, as a trans woman or as a trans man, right? Is the whole point is to be living as a woman or living as a man, and you want to be treated
Absolutely.
identically to the way anybody would treat any other woman or any other man. So
Yeah.
when you have people sort of tiptoeing around it and all of this, right? Like, I can guarantee you my boyfriend's initial comments on how attractive you were absolutely 100% treating you as a woman, and then was like, you're aware she's a trans woman, and he's like, what? And then he was like, oh no, I still put it in her butt, and which is the highest compliment you can get as a woman from my boyfriend. Yeah, no, he just like it was just like a blip, and oh, wow, that's interesting. And now let's talk about how hot she is again, right? So
Yeah.
It's funny doing all this online stuff because I don't talk about the fact that I'm trans every day in my real life, but I live, obviously I don't think being trans is normal, so that's that aspect of my life that's a little bit abnormal. But as far as like my day-to-day, like my life is really normal. I have a boyfriend who doesn't see me as his trans girlfriend. He just sees me as his girlfriend. I have a mom who doesn't see me as her trans daughter. She treats me as her daughter. So, um, yeah, I'm used to getting treated normally, but it's when people find out that they feel like they have to walk on eggshells, which I don't enjoy particularly.
Yeah, no, I understand. I don't think, I don't think most people would really like that. They would rather just, talk and interact normally. I want to go back to something that we said earlier when you were talking about, because I had this just tingling in the front of my mind. You said that when you go to the mall, you get 10 times more people smiling at you than you did when you lived as a man. And that actually really surprised me. Essentially, you were saying that in public, people are pleasant to you, and
Yeah.
you appear to like garner reactions positive. And I was just thinking that as a man, I think that most men do not have that experience, whether they're attractive or not. I think that even attractive guys don't really get it a lot, and I think that that's really interesting. So first I wanted to like make a note of that. Another thing is that you were talking about fashion and stuff, and one of the things that I've noticed with you and Theron as individuals, but not only that, like people that are also other badgers and other sort of people that I've interacted with that are women that are very feminine. I've noticed that your femininity and everyone that's involved with Honey Badger Radio and all our guests and stuff that are really feminine, men do really find that attractive. I mean, like they genuinely do, and I think that is a big part of it. Like, and maybe women also find it pretty attractive. So
Yeah,
but,
I think women do too.
Yeah. Like being really girly, and I was just thinking about how feminism is it has a problem with femininity in a way. What I mean is like being, for example, being feminine in the traditional sense, they don't like that at all. Like you know, you don't even have to necessarily go so far as to say, you know, do what Kirsten Dunst did when she said, "Oh, I just want to take care of my man and like cook for him or whatever," or when I think it was the girl who plays Penny on Big Bang Theory also said something like that, where she doesn't mind being, you know, submissive or whatever, and they didn't like that. But it's not only that; it's also just being a really feminine woman, because I think that one of the things that that people don't notice that men genuinely find attractive is not limited to your hip to waist ratio, how round your ass is, or whatever. It's actually got a lot to do with the way you carry yourself and how feminine you are. Men actually are very attracted to feminine behavior. And I've seen people on Twitter that have criticized anti-feminist women. There was actually one that was going around that Brianna Wu tweeted. I don't know if you know who Brianna Wu is. Do you know who that is, by any chance, Blair?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, okay. Well, I mean, because I just thought of it. Brianna Wu is also a trans woman. But she tweeted a thing out that said how to be an anti-feminist woman on the internet, and it was like a checklist. And it said, be hot and young and you know, be anti-feminist or whatever, and also have like a desperate need for male attention. And obviously there was a lot of projection there, but
I'm hot and young now?
Yes, apparently you are. Well, I think you're hot, Karen, for sure.
Oh,
but
whatever. You don't have to. Yeah, no, it's so sweet of you to lie like that, but you don't have to.
Okay, well, I tried, guys. I tried telling the truth, and she doesn't want to hear it. But point is, what Brianna Wu was actually looking at, because this Lauren Southern has also come into fire for the same reason, where there people were talking about the fact that essentially they were trying to say that because she's anti-feminist, it has to be because she really wants guys to like her. And the thing is that, I mean, guys do like her, and one of the reasons why is because of the views that she holds, and she seems really smart, but it's also because she is also very feminine. I think that the you know, being feminine is it's got its own kind of power. The power of the feminine is something that you know, feminists seem to not want to talk directly about. And I guess I'm just sort of acknowledging what I'm noticing, because you're a very feminine woman also, and I think that that's actually one of the that's actually probably a more attractive trait than we want to give credit. You know?
Yeah, I think
I was very rambly. I'm sorry.
no, but I understand what you're saying. I think, you know, an extension of femininity is sort of there's an upbeatness to it, maybe, and then an extension of masculinity would be the sort of stoicism. So people are naturally more attracted to someone who's, you know, walking around and a little bit more upbeat and a little bit more personable, just because they're, I don't know what I'm saying. I guess it's just, I agree that people are more attracted to femininity than masculinity. And there is power in masculinity. I think I tweeted those exact words.
Well, I think if feminists acknowledged that there was power in just presenting yourself as feminine, they'd have to acknowledge that women have always had power. And that's a very difficult thing for them to acknowledge.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Someone's asking...
Oh, yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead. No, it's fine. Go ahead.
I just feel so bad when people are asking questions.
And you want to answer them?
Yeah. Someone's asking, what's the difference between transgender and transsexual? Honestly, I don't know. I think the words at this point are kind of interchangeable. Some people say that transsexual is if you've gotten the surgery. Some people say transgender is, you know, the big umbrella. But I think that you can use either one.
I mean, I think that that's sort of like saying that there's a difference between sex and gender, isn't it? Because transsexual has the word sex in it, and transgender has the word gender in it, and we are fighting this. Well, I won't say fighting, but there is a discussion going on where, you know, there are people who say, well, gender and sex are different. Gender is what's in your head, and sex is what's, you know, your biology. And then there are people who say, well, gender and sex are just synonyms, and they really just mean the same thing. And I think that this is more sort of wordplay, right?
what frustrates me about the gender is what's in your head and sex is what's, in your chromosomes or whatever, right? I think, or your biology. I think that the biggest problem with that is that what's in your head is a reflection of your biology, right? So essentially, just like you couldn't convince David Reimer to identify as a girl and then a woman just because you tried to fuck with his head, you can't necessarily couldn't necessarily, like, all of the therapy and treatment in the world could probably not have convinced Blair here that she's actually a boy and would be happy being a boy and then a man. I don't think that you would be able to do that because some of what's going on in people's heads is biological, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think that, there are some people that say, a female brain in a male body, and that's someone who's trans. I think that's a weird way to put it. I don't think that I have just this 100%, a female brain thrown into a male body. I don't think that's what it is. I think I have certain neurological structures that would be similar to a biological woman, but I guess that's more of a semantics thing. I don't like when people say it's
Well,
female brain, male body.
I think too. I think you're right in that instance because a lot of the trans women, I believe, are overrepresented in certain male-dominated endeavors and fields like coding and software development and all kinds of stuff like that, right? So
there's like a duality that's
yeah.
there.
Yeah, I think so. That you and I mean I feel this myself. Like I've often joked that like the guys that fall for me within the first week and they're like talking about how big a house we're gonna need and all of this stuff, right? And then like a month later they're like, I'm suddenly just not feeling it and I don't know why. And I'm like, okay, that's when they realized they were dating a gay man in a woman's body, right? But it's not that I'm a gay man in a woman's body. It's not that I'm male at all. Certain parts of my psyche are more typically masculine, and a lot of men have a hard time with that if they're straight, right?
Blair, you're a computer science major yourself, aren't you? Or
Yeah,
what? Or
and
was?
no, I am. And the thing about the overrepresentation of trans people there, part of it is that the tech industry is just a little bit more diverse, whereas trans people do see a lack of job opportunities in other industries. But I think it also is because of just there is that duality, and there's kind of a sense of we're able to do things easier that men would do.
But women in tech. I thought that the tech industry was the most misogynistic and the least inclusive space on Earth.
I mean, here's the thing. On my first day of my computer science class this semester, I was the only girl. But the thing is, all I had to do to get in was register in the course. I didn't have to fight off.
Are you serious? You signed up and they just let you walk into the classroom with all those penises and you just did your thing? That's crazy.
It's amazing. All I did was sign up.
So, let me ask you this. We talked a bit about, and you made a really interesting point about violence against, or sort of like, the issues that transgender people like yourself deal with, and how that feminists will say, well, that's trans misogyny, and you're saying, well, no, I think this is actually misandry. That's actually a really interesting point, and it's a good place to start the discussion. And we also talked a little bit about circumcision earlier. First of all, what do you want to do with your channel? Like, do you have any goals in mind? Secondly, what are your do you have any specific men's issues that you may have a specific focus on, aside from the two that we just mentioned?
I don't have a specific. Ooh, there's a lot of echo.
Oh, that might be me. Hold on. Let me mute.
Mute yourself, damn it, Brian.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, so I don't have a particular set of issues that I want to do, just in men's issues. I want to talk about trans stuff. I want to talk about men's issues. And if suddenly there's some huge way that women become disadvantaged in an area, like I'll talk about that too. But and I don't have a particular goal with my YouTube. I'm just kind of having fun with it right now. I'm enjoying that there are people that enjoy the videos. There's been a couple people that have emailed me about like public speaking engagements, and that like terrifies me. So I don't know if I'll be able to do that. Maybe in the future, but I'd have to get to a point where I feel comfortable.
Don't be scared. Don't be scared. You know what? It's the easiest thing.
Is that?
Okay, it's not the easiest thing, but I mean, your mouth will get dry because, even if you're not, like, even if you don't have any other, like, butterflies in your stomach, and even if you aren't panicking and, like, about to pass out, right, your mouth will get dry. You'll get that kind of yicky, dry mouth, right, that makes you want to guzzle water, and it won't help because your mouth is dry because, your body, some part of you is nervous, but my experience with it, like the very first time that I stood up in front of an audience and spoke, and they were, it was not a automatically friendly audience, right? It was an audience of libertarians who were like completely new to all of this stuff, and they were all glaring at me and like scribbling furiously on their notepads, right, while I was speaking. So I was thinking, holy fuck, I'm like in for it, right? And then, but it was because they were hearing like things that they had not ever heard before, that they were like so intensely listening. At least that's the impression I got from the question and answer period afterwards, right? But one of the things was that I noticed was that the moment I stepped up on stage, it's like all of your doubts, all of your fears, all of your trepidation, all of your anxiety, that's just like out the window. It's just like, okay, here I am, and I'm going to do this thing. And if, like, hopefully you're going to be like me, and you're going to take somebody up on a speaking engagement, and you're going to go up there, and you're going to angst about it the whole time leading up. And then when you actually step up there, all of that's just going to go away. It's all just going to fall away like battery acid off of a duck's back. And and you're going to like do just fine, because, and I think that you should. If people are offering you speaking engagements, do it. Do it, Blair.
Yeah,
okay, I will consider it.
No, I know it's tough, but just think of it this way. Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn were able to do it in front of the fucking UN. Laurie Penny did it in Australia in front of a massive audience. I know that somebody like you could do it. And like these people don't even have the ability to speak off the top of their head. Like Anita without a script is like a puppet without a voice actor. I mean, so, just think of it that way. But on your own time, obviously, but I think that I think that it could be incredibly useful if you were to decide to do so. But I think that it could be that's definitely an option.
And it's a very empowering feeling. It really is. It really is a very empowering feeling to get through a speech and a question and answer period and have people applaud and have people approach you afterwards and want to talk to you and all of those. It's like, it's really, really, really affirming. So
yeah, I'll consider it. I've been doing this online stuff for I think only 2 months, so we'll see where it takes me. I imagine if I'm already getting those kind of offers now, that hopefully they'll continue and I'll have a chance to say yes when I grow the balls. No pun intended, but.
Speaking of which, Theron just messaged me on Twitter and she asks if you have a sheeness.
Oh Lord, Theron, I'm gonna need you to sit down and just mind your business.
Okay.
I love Theron. Theron was the reason why I did videos, because I messaged her after seeing one of hers, and she had me on a stream, and I was nervous, but she had me do it, and then people started messaging me telling me to do videos, so I did, and here I am. So
nice.
She's awesome.
Well, I think lots of people want to hear your perspective on things, and really, who are you to deny them that, Blair?
Yeah. Don't be so selfish.
Make more videos, damn it.
Check your nice hair and lips privilege. So
It's oh my god.
What?
No, I'm just saying.
Okay. What do you do besides the videos in school? Like let's because obviously you're more than just a transgender person on YouTube. So
No, I'm just an internet trainee.
That's it. That's just an internanny. Is that what
I
we're
only
calling it?
exist online.
Okay, you don't exist. When we close off the stream, you'll disappear into the ether and then reappear when we call you again. That's what it is.
She's an interanny.
Yes, interanny.
No, I exist in real life, actually. Yeah, I go to school, I make videos, I'm in love with makeup, which it's funny because I've always thought of being one of those beauty guru people on YouTube who do makeup tutorials. And then I fell into this, just the complete opposite, and I was like, and then I looked at my demographics on my YouTube, and I think I have like a 92% male audience, and I was like, maybe I could get more female audience if I like did a makeup tutorial and I was also talking about like circumcision and stuff while I'm applying eyeshadow.
You know, that's actually a really good idea. I mean, you clearly do know your way around a makeup. What do they call those things? Karen, help me out. I don't know what they call it.
I like big cosmetics palette. I don't.
Yeah, the blush and the.
I don't know. I own $20 worth of makeup that's about 2 years old at this point. So. I don't know.
So guys, you now know Karen does not even need makeup. She's just all natural. She's like Lady Godiva
I need it.
Imagine Radio.
Oh, you know what? I had some people in my last video. They were like, "Oh, you're looking so much better than usual. Like, are you wearing makeup? What's And it's because my boyfriend brought from his office. He brought home his sad light. He has one of those high-intensity, brilliant white lights, 10,000 lux, right? And I have that on in the office next to me, and so just it mimics natural light rather than the fluorescent light or incandescent light that's the yellow-toned, and that apparently made me look gorgeous. So I'm good at that. I go outside and I'm gorgeous. I look at myself in the bathroom mirror and I just want to put a bag over my head. But
it's like that. It's like that woman on Seinfeld. Do you remember?
Oh yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld was dating this woman that, depending on the lighting, totally determined what she looked like. Yeah, that's basically the same thing. So
absolutely,
you just learned something else about Karen, depending on the light.
Yeah, and also I have man hands. That's a Seinfeld trope as well.
Oh my god, I'm not saying anything.
I have like gigantic fucking man hands. Like they're huge.
I cannot contribute.
I have like veiny man hands.
My boyfriend makes fun of my hands and feet.
Oh, really?
You don't even want to get me talking about my feet. My feet are the ugliest fucking things on the planet.
Can you like snatch salmon swimming upstream with your feet, like a bear does in the wild? Is it like that? Can you grip a basketball? Like
my feet actually are they actually resemble more like Quasimodo. Like if you could just like boil down the entire impression of his body and turn it into a foot, that would be my feet.
Wow. Can you slap 3 basketball players at once?
Hideous and nasty and like bone spurs everywhere and oh my fucking god, you just don't
Karen.
know.
Karen, are you a secret sister? A secret trans sister?
Oh.
No, I am not. But
okay.
But I do have really ugly feet. There is okay. The only feet uglier than mine are my boyfriend's feet, and he has hip dysplasia and knee issues and flat feet, and then played hockey for like right. At which point he started growing bone spurs out of his heels, and other parts of his feet. So he's got like his feet look like the Elephant Man. My feet look like Quasimodo. His feet look like the Elephant Man.
And Karen has hands like Saruman.
Who has uglier feet than me.
Yeah. All right, so Theron, we're gonna be wrapping up.
Blair.
But Blair,
I'm
God
Blair.
damn it, Brian, what am I doing? I'm using the wrong pronouns. I should go check my privilege and then come back.
It's even worse. You're using the wrong name. I don't identify as Theron.
It's so bad. Blair, I apologize. What do you have any hobbies or interests? What do you do when you want to unwind? How do you you make videos, you deal with people online, you go to school, you get stressed out from work, whatever.
Oh my god, I have such a bad cold. Well, makeup's honestly a hobby. I collect makeup. I spend way too much money on makeup. I enjoy just going out with my friends. Happens a lot less lately because I've been so busy. And I love traveling. I'm spending spring break in San Francisco with my boyfriend. And yeah, I sound boring, but I mean, I make videos, go to school, do makeup. I don't know.
No, that's cool. How did you?
Normal.
Yeah. How did you meet your boyfriend? Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Like, how did that go down?
Okay. Yeah, we met on. The echo is so bad, Brian.
Oh, I'm muting myself.
Okay. We met on a Diablo 2 gaming website. Diablo 2 is a video game.
Yes,
I love Diablo 2.
My sons play that, and my stepson used to play it. Both my stepsons used to play it, but yeah.
People are gonna make fun of that so hard in the chat. I already know it. But yeah, that's how we met, and then we started. He lives in St. Louis. I live in California. We see each other as often as possible, and we are moving into a house together this summer. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep. Gonna be paying a mortgage, thank God, because I'm tired of paying rent.
You're gonna be living in sin, you heathen bitch. Yeah. And how does that make you feel?
Okay. Is there still an echo?
You're fine.
Oh, I'm good. Okay, great, awesome. Fucking Google, I don't get it. Okay, so you were on a Diablo gaming site when you met your boyfriend. So I'm going to presume from that you are also a gamer, or at least you do it enough that you would want to frequent like the social spaces associated with them. Am I right in my assumption?
Yeah, I'm not as huge of a gamer as, a lot of people out there. A lot of the games I play are just very commonly played games. I play League of Legends. I play Diablo 2, which is really, really old. I play StarCraft 2. But I've always done the online gaming thing since I was 11 or 12, and it's funny because I've talked to a lot of trans women who were online gamers at a young age. And they used female characters to sort of cope with the fact that they were trans. So it's kind of interesting. That's like a common thread.
Oh, I also played Diablo 2. I actually think it's better than Diablo 3, but that's just my opinion.
Oh my god, yes, Diablo 3 is the worst game.
I know.
Okay.
Diablo 2 is way better. And I played the assassin. I played the female character on there too.
Yeah,
but I just thought... Huh?
I said, yeah, I love the assassin.
Yeah, no, she was my favorite character. Okay, so as a result of that, then are you familiar, or were you involved with Gamergate at all, or were you aware of it?
I wasn't involved. That was kind of before I got into the discussion, but I was a witness, a bystander.
A what? A bystander?
I kept up with it a bit. Like I said, I'm not a huge gamer. I wasn't hugely invested in the conversation, but I was aware of it while it was happening.
Okay. Well, no, I was mainly concerned because there is obviously there's a relationship between what was going on with Gamergate and things like feminism and and all that. So
yeah.
I guess as an aside, how do you feel about the the media? Like, what do you when you are learning about a new story? Like, for example, there was this recent stuff that happened with Roosh V. Do you know who Roosh V is?
Oh, the legalized rape stuff.
The witch? Oh yeah, the legalized rape guy. Yes, that's.
Yeah. Mess.
Well, it's kind of like the Jonathan Swift is the Eat Irish Babies guy, right?
Yeah, basically. But you know, like the way that our news media, our internet news media, especially covers things, and this is sort of like where Gamergate came out of. But we, people who are involved, like people who are involved with the men's rights movement, have been dealing with this for a long time now. Have you looked at the have you given a lot of thought to the way the media covers things like feminism, men's issues, you know, in general, Gamergate, or anything like that? And if so, what do you have any thoughts on the way that media coverage works?
Yeah, and I think just particularly in terms of the Roosh V stuff, how there was just, I think I saw someone post a complete list of like all the media outlets that portrayed him and the group as a men's rights group, which was pretty insane because, to my understanding, they kind of shit on men's rights groups.
Oh yeah.
So there's definitely So there's definitely the vilification aspect of the MRM.
Oh yeah, the stuff that Roosh does is that the way the media covers it, I think the goal is not necessarily to expose Roosh V, but rather to use what he's doing to demonize the MRM.
Yeah, but
Karen, did you want to say something, or?
Yeah, no, I think it runs both ways, right? Because they want to associate him with the MRM in order to smear the MRM with the stain of Roosh V. But at the same time, a lot of MRAs are sort of essentially taking the exact same mainstream media's word for what Roosh V is all about. And so I think that there's, you know, like they're like, a lot of MRAs are like, okay, so he's a horrible misogynist, rape apologist, rapist, blah, 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 he's not one of us. When, you know, and so don't lie about us without ever considering that the mainstream might actually be misrepresenting Roosh's positions as well. You know, it's a very, very interesting phenomenon. Roosh is, I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that Roosh says, and I know that he's a very, very hardcore traditionalist. I would call him a homophobe, and I would call him someone who essentially really, 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 really likes to talk about how, you know, how much of an unstoppable sex machine he is, right? And there's a lot of flaws there, but some of the allegations that have come, that Roosh V has come under in terms of mainstream media, the whole rape should be legal thing, it's exactly the same as characterizing Paul Elam as saying, you know, men should be allowed to beat their wives because he wrote that satirical article about Bash a Violent Bitch Month, right?
Yeah, it's kind of the equivalent of everyone freaking out about an Onion article or something.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, I think that the MRM is getting a bad rap for being lumped in with Roosh V, but I think Roosh V himself is getting a bad rap as well, right? And I think that they're essentially going to demonize Roosh V as much as they possibly can and tie him to us in order to demonize us. And so many of the people on our side are willing to just kind of say, oh yeah, no, he's terrible, he's beyond the pale, and that's fine, and it's okay for the media to lie about him, just don't say that he's one of us, right? And I find that really frustrating.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, not to spend too much time talking about Roosh, but if the guy's ideas are bad, if the guy, you know, is if there's already enough there that you can use against him, then there's no need for the media to actually spin it. Like, it's already, the truth is enough, right? Because I just saw an article yes, the other day. It was like from the it was I think it was a mail online or something like that. I can't remember. And it was like police come to Roosh V's house. Apparently, he lives in his mother's basement. Literally, he's entering the door in a sweaty and dirty T-shirt.
He lives in Poland. He lives in fucking Poland, and he's in Maryland because he's in the U.S. And he's like, "Well, I'm in the U.S. I might as well visit my mom."
He was in his mother's basement.
But he's living in his mother's basement. Like,
Yeah, they may as well have photoshopped the fedora on his head at the door. I mean, they just don't even like a badly one, like just pop it on there, or like the douchebag hat that people put on, the brown one. They may as well have just done that and just said, yes, I'm wearing a fedora in public, But it's
It's absolutely ridiculous. My boyfriend was actually, he was like, I forget where I read that, but they caught him, apparently living in his mother's basement. I'm like, he lives in fucking Poland. He's visiting his mom because he's like, I'm in the country. I might as well visit my mom. That apparently that's not okay. Apparently that's a sign of not having testicles. So
yeah,
visiting your mom.
Oh well. Anyway.
It's a huge mess. There was like a meetup of that group, like an hour away from me or 45 minutes away from me, and my Facebook feed was just completely inundated with people freaking out, and I had the audacity to post that, hey, you guys, it's not actually a fucking meetup where they're gonna, kidnap and rape women, and it was suddenly, well, you're a fucking idiot, even if it was satirical, it's not funny, and I'm like, no one's arguing that it's funny, but you can't take it and run with it either.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the point is that whether it doesn't matter if you agree with Roosh or not. I think that but you are seeing the way in which the media, the news media, will spin a story in any way possible if they don't like the person that they're talking about, to make them not just make them wrong, but make them the worst people deserving of like mob justice, essentially. Like someone had some anonymous person doxed him, and I don't mean just like his real name. They like put out his address, his phone number, when they learned that he was planning on doing these meetups. And there were people who were like, we should kill this man. We should tar and feather him in public. We should do terrible things to him. And the thing about it, and this is why I was asking about the media, they are putting out all of this bullshit on someone, even though I don't agree with that person. They could easily point that gun at anyone they want and do the same thing. And it could be to someone that, well, I don't think Roosh deserves what people were talking about doing, but I think that's that's very telling in terms of the kind of power and influence the media has. And this is one of the reasons why I think Gamergate was so necessary, but well, I'd like them to go further, but definitely people are waking up, I think. So
yeah, I agree.
Well, I don't know what else we can really say. I guess we're gonna wrap it up. And look at that, hour and a half on the money.
On the dot.
On the nose of the Doge. So, guys, thanks for joining us. Karen, thanks for coming on. Do you want to say any final things to Blair on the air? I got her name right this time.
Actually, bone to pick, the video title says Blair without the E. It says Blaire White.
Wait, did I write it wrong?
Everyone forgets the E.
Oh, my God. I'm going to fix it now.
Oh, Brian. Oh.
This is why I was screwing the name up. I just fixed it.
You forgot the E.
I know. I thought because it's silent.
The E, Brian.
So basically, I regret I ever came on because you had the audacity.
I think it's absolutely good. I think that just because it was Brian and me, you should regret it just instantly anyway, regardless of any errors, slips of the tongue, or anything like that. I think any normal, decent human being would regret actually being on with me and Brian. So.
So I'm definitely done with you guys after this, never to talk again.
But I just thank you so much for coming on, and I'm really glad that I was able to actually get to know you a little bit. I will probably go over to your channel and subscribe. I'm really horrible about subscribing to people. Like I usually wait until like there's, I don't know, 5 or 6 videos that I'm like wowed by before I subscribe, and so but I'll probably go over and subscribe to your channel, because honestly, what I've seen from you, the 2 videos that you've done, your conversation with Paul Elam, and your conversation with Theron, the trannies of the men's rights movement, I believe it was called. They're awesome. They're awesome videos, and
Thank you.
There's a lot of insight that you can provide in terms of, just due to your unique position, having lived on both sides of the fence, that a lot of people may not they may not necessarily appreciate until they've actually heard somebody who can say, yeah, I lived this, right? And so yeah, I'm glad you're with us, Blair. I'm glad you're.
Yeah.
I'm glad to, and it's particularly cool for me to be on here just because I've watched Karen's stuff for, I don't even know, probably like 2 years at this point. So fun.
Oh, are you saying you're a misogynist now? Well, fucking never mind. Unsubscribe.
It's just as heinous a crime as misspelling someone's name by leaving the E out. So.
Okay, so none of us are friends anymore.
No, we're not friends anymore.
We're totally frenemies. I don't even know what a friend is.
No, yeah, it means that we're going to bring her back on, but we're not going to be speaking to each other directly. We're going to talk around each other the whole time.
So can we have Hannah and Allison on to act as go-betweens with them? Like, can you ask Blaire White who the fuck she thinks she is when she says blah blah blah, and then Allison will go, Blaire White, who the fuck do you think you are when you say blah blah blah? And then you can say, you ask Karen what the fuck kind of fucking bullshit she's trying to spout, blah 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 blah, and then Hannah will be like, Karen, what the fuck kind of bullshit are you trying to spout? And then I'll be like, yeah, it'll be excellent. Very entertaining.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to do a Badger Pod frenemy show.
Well,
because I'm getting. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay, so Blair, do you have any final words before I close the show off?
Not really. Just thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun, and I hope we do it again.
No, thanks for coming on. Yes, we'll definitely try to do another thing in the future. Maybe bring you on a Thursday show with Theron or something. Let you guys, like fight or whatever it is you do when you hang out. I don't know.
It'll be dangerous.
I don't know what trannies do when they hang out. So, but
we'll be drunk and we'll be talking over you guys, rambling.
Oh yeah, there you go. See, that's it.
There'll be Jello and rupees.
Yeah.
Well, according to the progressive stack, you do get to speak before everyone else, so we will have to cede the floor whenever your voices pipe up.
Yeah, my oppression card trumps all of you guys's. So.
That's exactly right. Are you thinking of joining Islam? Because that will actually put you a step higher. I'm just saying. You might want to consider that.
It is one of my resolutions for the new year, so we'll see, how soon I can make that happen, but it is on my agenda.
It's just a matter of finding a way to make your makeup kit match with your hijab.
Yeah, it has to match.
It has to match. Has to. All right, well, guys, thanks for coming on the show today. Next week we're going to have a guy that is heavily embroiled in Metalgate. He's a Turkish dude in a band that he's pretty fucking metal. So we will see you then. And thank you again, Karen, and thank you again, Blair, for coming on.